Good afternoon and good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode of Monday Afternoon Quarterback. Thrilled to be joined by Aaron of 49ers First Takes for today's episode, breaking down a win, a critical win for the San Francisco 49ers. Aaron, how are you feeling on this Victory Monday?
A lot better than I imagined. I think everybody was a little nervous with Trey yesterday starting, but I was pleasantly surprised with the outcome. Little nervous for a while up until about the third quarter, and then things kind of pretty much took care of themselves after that. So doing pretty well.
Good, good. Yeah, it was nerve-wracking. Certainly at halftime, you thought to yourself, uh-oh, is this going to go the way that we want it to go against a team that it's set up that it should have gone that way? And it became a bit more of a nail-biter than I would have liked to have had against a team like the Texans. And before we get into it, I'm interested to do a group poll. I was talking to you about this before the game, but I need some insight from the fans here on their opinion of this. And I know what your take is now, but we'll get into that in a minute. So I was expecting a food delivery on Friday night. Was going to have myself some choice lobster rolls shipped in fresh from Maine. It was going to be a New Year's Eve dinner celebration to remember. FedEx dropped the ball. FedEx did not deliver my lobster rolls on Friday. These have been carefully packaged up, shipped from Kennebunk, Maine. They made it to Portland for 10 a.m., but the sorting facility said, we'll have none of it. We're not delivering your lobster rolls. So I figured, well, lobster rolls on Sunday night then, or Saturday night. Like I thought I would get them over the weekend. No, FedEx would have none of it. They did not deliver my lobster rolls until today. So I'm putting out the poll to those of you in the chat. You have three options. One, you just say scrap it. You've had lobster that has been in foam and ice packed for 4 days at a sorting facility and you throw it away. Or you say, to hell with it, I'm cooking that. It's lobster rolls. It's going to be delicious. Or the third option is you give it the sniff test, and as long as it passes the sniff test, then you're good to go. Aaron, what was your take on it for the group there in the chat?
Toss it.
I think that's probably the safest route, is to just toss it and get something else for dinner. I think that's probably going to be the overwhelming response in the chat as well.
I apologize, but there'd be no way in hell I would eat that.
No apologies necessary, Aaron. No apologies necessary. Got to celebrate. We got a new sneakerhead that joined the community today. Brian Rivera, welcome to the sneakerhead community, the sneakerhead army. Very excited for it. BMF Ranger says, to hell with it. You eat that. It is lobster. You go for it. Yes. G-Bone is all about the sniff test. That's why we have those senses, to be able to take that. But the overwhelming response seems to be throw it away, toss it. Yeah, that's the safe bet. That is the safe bet, not to mess with expired seafood. All right, let's get past expired seafood and get into the excitement that was this game and get into some grades for Trey Lance. If you were grading based on halves, it may look completely different for the first half and the second half. But when you start to look at overall takeaways from the game, Aaron, how did you feel about it?
I thought he played about as well as he could, considering the amount of time that he hasn't played this year, with
Right.
the only running scout team. We have to remember that when he played the first time, his index finger wasn't able to straighten because of the injury that he suffered in the preseason. Then he got hurt during that game as well. So take that all in consideration. You take the fact that he really hasn't, seen the field much in almost 2 years. And I thought he played pretty reasonably well. I gave him like a B- grade. He had his rookie moments in the game with, taking off as soon as the pressure got to him at some points. Tried to force one to George Kittle that, I guess if he would have been a little bit more accurate and put a little arc on the ball, it might have got there. But his second half and his ability to just like extend the pocket and maneuver in the pocket and make really, really nice throws, especially the one to Debo. I was really proud of the kid. If this is his floor, as far as how maybe he can go up from here, I think we're in a good position. My optimism for him I was already going to be optimistic anyways, because I even tweeted before the game, regardless of the outcome of this season and with Trey, I'm sticking with the kid. And
Yeah.
I was definitely very, very, even my brother was pretty impressed by him, considering all the things that have gone into it with him not having a lot of experience and coming from a Division II school, all the stuff. So yeah, I thought he played very well.
Yeah, I thought so too. The grades coming in seem to be pretty consistent with what you're talking about. Mook DeVillen talking about giving Trey a B plus. Jay Skies agrees with that B plus rating. Brian King taking it down to the B. Del Tyree with the solid C plus. Eric Schultz going A plus, given the circumstances. Before I give my grade, I just have to give a shout out to Come On Friday for the idea of don't eat the lobster rolls. Let him sit a few more days, then send him down to Matthew Stafford for him to consume this week.
Great
that would be
idea.
nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, so I am right in that grade range. I thought that it was, a mixed bag for the most part. If you're comparing the first half against the second, looked considerably better in the second half. But going through some of the statistics from the game, Trey Lance had 10.8 yards per attempt, second among all starting quarterbacks on Sunday. Not to compare him to Jimmy, because I don't like the direct comparisons, but, that's what we're at right now, is deciding between the two. Jimmy's only done that, the 10.8 yards per attempt minimum, 6 times in his 44 starts as a 49er. Lance had an average depth of target, ADOT, of 12.4 yards, and that was the highest among all starting quarterbacks on Sunday. So I did think that that was the added element that you got from Trey Lance in the game. And then the question becomes, okay, but if you got that added element, he still has to be able to do those things that Jimmy does well in the short and intermediate game. And so between 0 to 20 air yards on Sunday, you look at him and he was 13 of 16 for 174 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 8 first downs completed. He really was carving it up underneath. That was when I went back and rewatched the film. That's what I was looking at, was the short passes. And they weren't all 1,000% on target, but they were all catchable balls. And that, to me, was the critical component, that he's doing what Jimmy does as far as operating the offense. Maybe not as proficiently, but pretty damn good.
Yeah, I see some people in the chat saying, he was going against the Texans and that the Rams will be a stiffer test. I think the Rams would be a stiffer test regardless if it was Trey or not starting, especially that it's in their building. But I don't know. I just look at the fact that this is an NFL team, even if it's the Texans, and he performed reasonably well. Is this the best we're going to see of Trey? No. I mean, this is like his story is just being written this year. So, I'm just really optimistic with him. Yeah, I don't know. I just had like a feel. I don't know, when you watch somebody sometimes and you're like, they're overmatched. They don't look like they belong. I don't get that feeling with him. With him, it's just more like he just has to learn to repeat deliveries and, make the easy throws like Jimmy, because Jimmy's great with all the over the middle stuff, all the short intermediate. That's Jimmy's bread and butter.
Yep.
But when defenses take that away from him, he really struggles. So, if Trey can figure out a way to do the simple stuff well as much as he does the difficult throws, like the one he made to Debo to really seal the game, he's just going to be that much more dangerous. And then you put on top of that his ability to use his legs. I don't see him as a runner, Rob. I see him more as a scrambler.
Yes, that's a good differentiation.
Not super fast, but he's mobile, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't see him like as a Kaepernick where he's just like, whoa, he's gone. He doesn't quite have that gear, but he's able to, like Russell Wilson, like extend plays, maneuver the pocket, get himself into a better throwing angle. And like I said, if this is the beginning, I'm really, really optimistic.
Yeah, I thought so too. And the improvement from the first half to the second half was also very encouraging for me along those lines, right? If I'm looking for optimism, takeaways, projecting to what he's going to be able to do if he plays again in week 18, I thought both he and Coach Shanahan got more comfortable as the game went on. It was a very conservative opening to the game. I mean, 8 runs to 2 passes to start it out. Didn't really open it up until the end of the first half on that second 2-minute drill, right? It wasn't even the first 2-minute drill where they really opened it up. It was after the defense got the ball back with 38 seconds to go. And it really was positive for me. If I'm looking for other things I took away as positives, he really was eluding hits within the pocket, but still maneuvering within the pocket, not, to your point, not picking up and running right away. Completed that 2-yard quarterback sneak. So, check that off the list of things that he can do as well. Hit the shorter throws. Took a few shots that I might want back, right? If I'm being critical, there were a few that were not great, but there were bad play calls too. The 3 run calls to end the second drive of the game were less than stellar, and that was most definitely Coach Shanahan running him, similar to, that gave me visions of Arizona. And at that point, I was like, oh no, here we go again. But then both of them got comfortable and really... To me, there were some things that I saw where I was like, okay, this is a game changer. The throw to Sherfield at the end of the first quarter was the very first example of it, of something that it felt like our offense had been missing. But you saw it again with 38 seconds left on the clock, being able to push the ball and score some points before the half. I thought that was huge, and I thought it changed the momentum.
And the fact that you challenge defenses to respect the long ball. When we get, and like I said, Jimmy's great at the intermediate stuff, but the thing that the Niners defense really lacks with Jimmy is the ability to kind of threaten the defense. And especially with our run game and how successful it is, if you hit one of those, I can only imagine you're going to have man-on-man coverage just because there's so much respect for what Elijah Mitchell and Debo can do in the run game. And with defenses play Jimmy, they really don't ever have to worry about that. And with Trey, even with that touchdown or the attempted touchdown pass to Ayuk in the corner of the end zone, the fact that he threw it, the same with the one that got called offense or defensive pass interference, you never get that with Jimmy.
No.
And that to me is an added element. Even when you don't complete them, the fact that the defense has to respect it is just another part that Trey adds.
Right. The defense has to respect it. And on that throw to Ayuk, 1 out of 4 times he makes that circus catch, right? It's a ridiculous catch if he makes it. You don't expect him to, but you've got to take the chance because he will come down with it at times. And that would have been huge. Absolutely. I do want to call out that, Sean 951 Niners, one of our sneakerheads here, is absolutely right on this. He's got some complimentary chat as well. So I don't want it to think that that Sean is down on Lance, but he does correctly call out that Lance almost threw 2 more picks as well. Did get lucky in some respects and certainly had some success in others. To me, it was seeing him do those things that I have been calling for that really made me want to see more of this. I have been saying for the longest time, you can work Lance in to the existing game plan. You get in between the 40s, you get him under center, play action, roll him out to the wide side of the field. He then has 2 very viable options. He's got a cannon for an arm that he can launch it anywhere on the field, including back across the field, like he did to Debo Samuel there in the fourth quarter. So I was just thrilled to see the 49ers execute on something that I thought they could be doing for many weeks now. And to see it be effective for Trey, it changes the game for opposing defenses.
Yeah, and a lot of people are making the comment that he almost could have had 3 picks. I mean, Jimmy almost had 3 picks in Tennessee too. There was another one that he missed. So
right,
it's to me to nitpick what almost could have happened with the rookie. There's pros that Brady's had in his last couple of years. He's had more than his fair share of pick sixes. So, even the best throw interceptions, he's going to have some clunker games when he plays next year. It's just going to happen. It happens to great quarterbacks. It's definitely going to happen to a young buck like him. He's just so unflappable mentally. He just has this ease, almost too relaxed. Sometimes I get a little bit like, come on, dude, let's get the plays in, like I get a little bit irritated because he's almost too relaxed, which is good in some ways. He has a little bit of that Joe Montana where he never looks stressed, but at the same time, you kind of want it to, all right, let's go. But I was very, very encouraged. And just the fact that the defense now has to respect more quadrants of the field and not just worry about 10 to 12 yard box of like slants and crossers and stuff that he might actually throw. Like the throw to Kittle that Kittle had to make the circus catch for.
Right. The one-handed, unbelievable catch by Kittle. That was so beautiful.
That was great. I mean, he overthrew it a little bit, but Kittle was like, whatever, you got to make the catch.
Yeah.
I was very happy. I've been very negative. Me, I'm a little bit more of the negative football fan.
Right.
But with Trey, I don't know. He has he has so much room to grow, and I can't be critical of, you can be critical, but also at the same time, just chalk it up to learning experience. So
yeah, there's critical and there's overcritical. And I think right now, the vast majority, thankfully, because of the win, I think most people are not being overly critical. I think that there's acknowledgement that there were things that could have gone better, but overall, a very positive performance. Waruna here with the B-, but asking, is that too harsh? I don't think it is. I think that's within the realm of what's reasonable to grade this. To me, it was right around that B grade. I think that he did some things well. He started out slowly. He looked to be a little bit behind the eight ball to begin with, moving at a slower rate than you would have liked to have seen. But then he picked up that pace. And once he started to feel comfortable, it really leapt off the screen for me as far as that comfort dictating his ability to make the plays that his athleticism sets up for him to make. And that sets us up for the transition. And Aziel Norton comes in to ask it. In my opinion, Jimmy would give them the best chance against the Rams this year, though I'm less nervous about Trey next year. That's the question. What if Jimmy is healthy? It would seem that Kyle Shanahan is pointing to Jimmy Garoppolo as quarterback one. It seems that that's the same messaging that Trey Lance is sending, right? When asked whether he was going to be playing the next week in the postgame presser, he made a specific point to recognize Jimmy as QB1 and say, obviously, I'll be ready to go just in case Jimmy isn't. So it comes down to a question of, do you believe Jimmy's going to be ready for next week? And if he is, would you put him in over Trey Lance?
As critical as I've been at Jimmy, and I've been really critical, I am leaning towards, if they have to play somebody for the Rams game, I would go with Jimmy, just for experience and just the importance of the game. Not that Trey's not any good; he's real good, but it's just, I don't know, when it's the biggest game of the year for them. It's like a playoff game. It's win or go home. So, is much as encouragement as I have in Trey and the future of the 49ers. I see somebody in comments saying boo. It's just my personal comfort level, just because of how important the game is. Jimmy's played relatively well against the Rams. So I know it's not a popular decision, but I would only do that if Jimmy is 100% or at least close to 100% healthy. I wouldn't do it just because if Trey gives you the best chance to win strictly based on his health, then you got to kind of have to roll with that, just because if Jimmy's only at like 65%, he's actually not an asset to you. He's a detriment. So
yes,
that's how I look at it.
Yeah, to me, that's the biggest question mark is whether Jimmy is going to be healthy enough to play this week. And it breaks out in that I think Jimmy benefits less from practice at this point in the season than Trey. And I think that's a fairly obvious statement that I don't have to back up too much. Trey would get a lot out of being able to practice this week. So I think it sets up where you allow just that. You allow Trey to practice throughout the week. You want to push off Jimmy attempting his first passes as far as you can, because as soon as you start attempting passes, you're now potentially weakening that thumb, right? You're giving it less time to heal and to reattach. I think Shanahan specifically referenced that there is that torn portion of the UCL ligament that can reattach if you allow it long enough to heal. And so you haven't had Jimmy throw yet. I mean, it has been since that game against the Titans. He didn't attempt to throw over the weekend, according to Shanahan. And I think the first real attempt for him will be, I think it was mentioned, on Wednesday. So if he can go then, we'll have some additional information as to whether Jimmy's healthy. I have to agree with you wholeheartedly that if it's a question of whether he can go or not, you go with the healthy body. You go with Lance. I go back and forth on which one gives the better psychological edge to the 49ers. I could see getting confidence from the veteran. He's had a long track record of playing quite well against the Los Angeles Rams. You could expect him to do that again. You could expect him to come in and sort of complete the mission this year. He has started the vast majority of the games, got the 49ers the chance that they now have. And so you could see that from a logical perspective, but you just had a win from the explosive rookie who appeared to be getting better as the game went on. So from a logical standpoint, I could really make the argument either way. And that's what's so difficult about this.
I wonder if you were to, what's the word I'm looking for? Quiz the team or give them a multiple choice at who they want to play, who they'd actually pick. I think some guys would want to go with Jimmy just because they've rode with him this far and this long. And a lot of the guys on the team really like Jimmy. So, but at the same time, like somebody in the chat said, he gives the Niners such a different dynamic, Trey, when he's in there. It's just another thing the Rams have to worry about. So it's tough. This is a huge game. The Niners put themselves in this position by playing poorly early on.
Yes.
And they only have themselves to blame for not taking care of business earlier in the year. So this game means a lot more than it really should. Usually at this point, sometimes things are locked up so you can kind of rest people, but Niners don't have that luxury. They have to win. No ifs, ands, or buts. I know that there's a chance they could still get in if certain teams lose. I'm not exactly sure why put that in the chances of another team, and then that's why I keep coming back to Jimmy being the most. I feel like he gives you the best chance to win. I'm not saying he's the better quarterback at this point. If you put the talent of both guys together, but if you asked me and put a gun to my head and said, "Who do you want?" I would say Jimmy, only because of experience.
Right.
This is a huge game. They go home if they don't win, so. That's where my opinion comes in. It has no other reasoning behind it. It's not I definitely ain't hate towards Trey because I'm all Trey all day. So,
and it would seem that Coach Shanahan agrees with you, right? The idea that he's pretty clear on Jimmy starting if Jimmy's healthy tells you what you need to know, because I believe wholeheartedly that I'm not into conspiracy theories. I think that Coach Shanahan wants to win games at all costs. That is his priority this year. So if he's going back to Jimmy, it's because of what you just said. He believes Jimmy gives him the best chance to win this one game. And ironically, it is because Jimmy's performance is a bit more predictable to Shanahan at this point. He knows that Jimmy can operate within this offense. And I say that's ironic because of the up and down nature of Jimmy's play. It's ironic that you would look at that as the consistent factor in this decision. People are split. Mr. Norton coming in. All Jimmy does is beat the Rams. Come on, people. Let's get real. If Jimmy can play, he should play. Sean 951 in pretty much agreement. Jimmy G got us to this point, 8-6, Trey 1-1. Jimmy G needs to go if he's ready to go. Trusting Jimmy G versus Trey, given all circumstances. I ride with Jimmy G if healthy only, and will live with the results. Zark Muckerberg in here. Who cares if you play Lance and he loses? He needs the experience. Jimmy isn't going to win a Super Bowl. This is one that you see pretty often. That I get the logic here from Zark, but I have to say I disagree with, because this is the NFL playoffs. This is not Major League Baseball. This is not the NBA. This is not a best of 5 or a best of 7 game series. This is one and done. And it's not always the best team that wins in the NFL. Now, it's pretty rare that a poor team goes on a hot streak and wins a Super Bowl. You could go back and look at some of the worst teams in the NFL to win a Super Bowl, and it's pretty infrequent for somebody to claw and fight their way into it. But there's a chance. And a playoff win would mean so much to me that I just can't write it off as, well, I'd rather have the rookie get some experience than get a playoff win. No, if the choice is between a playoff win or Trey getting experience, I'm going for the playoff win all day, every day. And I think that's where Shanahan and the front office and the coaching staff are in believing that if healthy, Jimmy can go or should go.
And the way I look at it too is like, if Jimmy's struggling in this game and is erratic because of his hand, you have more confidence that if you replace him with Trey can, help you get the job done, because now we've seen it already. We saw
Right.
that he played reasonably well in his second start. So you have that, I guess it's a luxury, or you have that to fall back on now that you've seen Trey perform. And the stakes were pretty important in this past game too. It's not like the
Yes, they
Niners,
were.
and the kid looked unfazed. So at least you go with Jimmy, you start him, and if he struggles, if his hand is hurting him instead of helping him, then you put in the kid. Let the kid practice all week. Let Jimmy sit. Like you said, Jimmy at this point, practice doesn't really benefit him. He's been the starter all year. Trey needs all the reps and help he can get. And I would give Trey all the reps in practice all week. Let Jimmy sit, and then figure out on Saturday if Jimmy's ready to go. And if he is, you go with him. If he struggles, to put it's a quick hook.
Yeah,
You got to
right.
go to the kid early. Don't wait till you're in the third quarter. You know what I mean? Like make that assessment early on. So
I'm with you on that. I also feel the way Kirk the Chameleon does here. If Jimmy can, good, but it isn't happening. That's what I'm a bit skeptical that he will be good to go. With these national reports that are coming out, I do think it's fair to speculate that with this tear and the little bone fleck or whatever it is you want to call it, having busted off in this UCL ligament, I do wonder if he'll be able to go again this year, and therefore it may not actually be an option. Sal with some solid logic here. Trey's a better quarterback, but Jimmy's quick release is what really beats up the Rams. I also hope Jimmy starts, but I wouldn't be nervous if Trey starts since he can use his legs. I mean, that's just it for me, is you take away some optimism from this game that if needed, Trey can step in and win this one coming up against Los Angeles. That you might prefer to have Jimmy Garoppolo back there because of the fact that he has beaten up on the Rams and does understand this offense fully. But I'm feeling some confidence in the fact that if Trey is out there, he is just exciting enough to force something and get us into the playoffs.
yeah, I feel like we're in a better position than people realize if in fact Jimmy's able to go. So, the chat is saying, why risk it? It's only going to mess things up if you gank Jimmy and put Trey in. It wouldn't happen midway through the game. This would be a pretty early hook. This would be, 1-2 drives. If you see that if he's not doing it, you can put the kid in early and on enough to where, you're not doing it mid game or, like I said, third quarter, but the fact that we're having this discussion after the start we had this year is good enough for me. The fact that we have a chance to get into the playoffs if we win is good for me. And I just say roll with Jimmy if he's healthy, and let the chips fall where they may. And if it doesn't work out and we go home this year, at least we have more of an idea of what we got at the quarterback position going into next year.
Amen to that. And taking positivity out of just making the playoffs is something.
I'm trying.
The Jimmy G conundrum, though, definitely has fans passionate. Miguel coming in the super chat. We will lose if Jimmy plays. 100%. He throws picks when fully healthy. Now imagine not being 100%. I think Miguel here is illustrating what a lot of 49er fans feel, which is an emotional reaction to Jimmy Garoppolo. We have been through enough of those ups and downs of that inconsistent play where I think a fair number of 49er faithful have a bit of PTSD when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm excited for the future with Trey Lance. I most definitely am, but I can't put myself in this circumstance where I believe that putting Jimmy in assures us of a loss. I have to side with Coach Shanahan when he indicates that the person that can most consistently operate his offense is Jimmy Garoppolo. I've got to take him at his word there because I'm not there in every practice.
Right. Totally.
All
agree.
right, let us get into a moment of looking at those playoff scenarios. What can unfold? I got to be in here with a little mea culpa about the live stream last night. I didn't take into account the loss by the Vikings and how that impacted the Philadelphia Eagles. It is actually a pretty simple scenario for the 49ers, and I just wanted to break it down here before we get into the next topics. We'll answer any questions that folks have in the chat there, but it is basically simple for the 49ers in that they still control their own destiny. They are currently in the 6th seed with the Eagles having secured a playoff berth, currently sitting in the 7th seed. So the Eagles have clinched. There is only one remaining spot for the playoffs, and it's between the San Francisco 49ers and the New Orleans Saints. Don't ask me how they clawed their way back into this one. All credit to Sean Payton. I mean, that is wild. But it's simple. The 49ers win or tie against the Los Angeles Rams, they are in. No need to go any further than that. A win or a tie is it for the 49ers. They are in. If they lose and the Saints win, the 49ers are out. But if they lose and the Saints lose, the 49ers are still in. I mean, admittedly, I'm a little bit irritated by the fact that there's a team that we beat that's clinched a playoff spot and we haven't. And the idea that we could end up with the same record as a team that we beat in a head-to-head matchup and not get in, I'll be honest that bothers me, even though I understand the tiebreaker rules and the idea that, it's because we haven't played the Saints that screws this all up. But that's a little frustrating to me, for sure.
Yeah, it's like it's never consistent what the rules are as far as who gets in and who's out. It's sometimes head-to-heads matter and sometimes they don't. And sometimes it's strength of I don't know if it's like conference schedule or how you did against the conference. It's just, to me, it's like I said, the Niners put themselves in this position and they have all the pressure on them to win this game against the Rams. So it is what it is at this point. There's nothing you can do to change it. The Niners, like I said, they dug this hole. They got to find a way to do the impossible and beat the Rams in their place, with the Rams having the NFC West division on the line. So the Rams are going to be extra motivated for that, I think. But I'm not really overthinking this. It's just win and you're in. And if you lose, maybe you get lucky. I'm definitely going to be hoping that Atlanta loses, or is it the Saints?
That the Saints lose, that Atlanta beats
then,
New Orleans.
If we do lose, we still have a shot to get in there. So I hate Eric Davis had a question about stuff yesterday, and he's like Q&A, and I'm like, what are the chances if we lose, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, why would you even think that? I'm like, I'm just saying. I just want to know,
just in case.
Right. He's like, I couldn't tell you. And then someone below me answered me with the scenarios. I'm like, oh, okay. But Eric Davis is like, why would you even want that? I'm like, I don't want that.
No, let's be clear. We really, really want to win this one. Really want to close it out on a positive note. I mean, it's as if the NFL went to a play-in game for that last spot in the playoffs, and the 49ers are now in that play-in game, playing a playoff caliber opponent to decide whether they get to go on and get their seat in the playoffs. You couldn't have asked for a better scenario. When we were sitting at 3-5, if I had told you we would get to week 18 and a win against the Los Angeles Rams would propel us into the playoffs, you would have been thrilled with that outcome at that point, right? I mean, it looked bleak for 49er faithful at that point. And here we are, a win, and we are in. HBO is AceBO. Comes in. If Jimmy plays, can his fry be a detriment to the team? If he plays poorly and loses, can his... I'm not sure what fry is supposed to be there. Should we be proud of him? FYI, Mullins beat the Rams last year. So I think what this is calling out is that Jimmy probably can beat the Rams, but if he comes in and plays poorly and loses, then that's the end of our season. So I'm guessing that HBO here is preferring to start Lance in this one. But I got to go back to whatever gives the 49ers the best shot to win this game. I am all on board with Trey moving forward. And yet, getting into the playoffs is a critical component to a successful season. Yes, we now have a winning record for this year, right? We will have, at worst, a 9-8 record. So we did get a winning record this year. But man, what a difference to be that 6th seed in the playoffs versus getting bounced on that last second loss. So I got to go with the coach. If he believes Jimmy operates this offense the best, I got to ride with that and then have the short hook. Either way you go, you now have a viable second option. Whether you start Trey and he struggles and you put in Jimmy with a less than 100% thumb, or you put in Jimmy with the less than 100% thumb, he struggles. Now you have Trey as well. To me, that's the difference.
I don't have to say anything. That's exactly what I was thinking. Go with the coach. I put this one on Kyle. I'm not going to let myself stress about it. If Kyle thinks Jimmy gives us the best chance, then let's do it. If Jimmy thinks that, or if Kyle thinks that Trey gives us the best chance, let's do it. I don't know if you're paying attention to the chat, but there is definitely like a COVID situation on the 49ers right now.
Yes.
And one of them is saying Jimmy Ward is on the COVID list. Yeah, but there's a couple of them, but it's only a 5-day window now, and it's only Monday, right? It's no longer a 10-day.
Yes, there is definitely a chance. If you test today, you definitely have a chance. But it is confirmed. I'm looking at Twitter right now. Jimmy Ward to the reserve COVID-19 list. I mean, I think it's official to say that you've got a breakout that occurred because you had Dante Johnson and K'Wan Williams already announced earlier today that they were on the list, added to health and safety protocols. Now you have Jimmy Ward as well. Raheem Mostert was added. You just hope that he wasn't in contact with the remainder of the running back room. You would think not. You would think that they would keep someone who's on injured reserve away from the rest of the group just to be prudent about who you allow to come in close contact there. But the Jimmy Ward, that's a big one. I mean, that will certainly change the outcome of this upcoming game if he's not out there. I mean, he had those 2 interceptions that really turned that last victory against the Rams around.
Yeah, I'm definitely worried for sure. That sucks. Yeah,
it does.
It's the world we live in now, unfortunately.
It seems to be that the 49ers staved off this rush of infections for most of the season. What a shame that now we're in this, spike of cases. But they have changed the protocols. It is possible for all of these players to come back, and we'll just keep our fingers crossed that by the end of the week, they're able to come back. We got a couple of super chats. District 13, I think Rams will rest some of their starters. That goes back to what Aaron was talking about. I don't know that they will. They're going to be vying for the overall, having won the NFC West. They need to win out to hold off Arizona. If the Rams lose and Arizona wins, I believe they flip-flop in the standings, and therefore the Rams will be playing for champions of the NFC West. So I think it's doubtful that they will rest some of their starters, but you never know. I mean, they may rest some starters because of their own COVID outbreak. It certainly has flooded the league. Tobin Ernst coming in to report that, in fact, Jimmy Ward has hit the COVID list. I can confirm that, having looked at Twitter myself and seeing some of the reputable sources out there, but much appreciated for bringing that in. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not, look at, Javier Rios mentioning here, Mostert potentially being in close contact with Mitchell. And we know now just how quickly this thing spreads in its current variant. So that will be a storyline to keep your eyes on, is the 49ers' health and availability for the upcoming game. That would be a real letdown to have a matchup like this with everything on the line be negatively impacted by the frickin' virus at this point in the season. That would be just
everything
heartbreaking.
After how hard we worked to get here.
So brutal. So brutal. Yeah, people are saying, Raheem Mostert, yes, he is on season-ending injured reserve, but he's still around the team. I'm just wondering if he's not there in the team meetings, which would be beneficial, right? You would rather not have him out in the groups with those guys, because the more close contacts you have, the more risk of infection, unfortunately. All right, just finishing up the playoff scenarios before we get into our next topic, there is going to be the 4 different scenarios that can unfold and the end result. Number 1, San Francisco wins. Then the 49ers are locked in as the 6th seed. It is that easy. Win, lock yourself into the 6th seed. Scenario number 2, San Francisco loses, New Orleans loses, Philadelphia loses. In that scenario, where all 3 of those teams lose, the 49ers remain in the 6th seed. The third scenario, 49ers lose, New Orleans lose, but Philadelphia wins. That's the scenario where you have the Niners drop down into the 7th seed, but they still make it because they lose. New Orleans loses. Last one is the one that we need to avoid. San Francisco losing, New Orleans winning. That is the scenario where the 49ers would be out of the playoffs. So that is the one that we're rooting against. We are Atlanta Falcons fans this weekend, and we need our Niners to win. That's it. We just need our Niners to win. That is the recipe for success. All right, how do they do that? Well, it will be reliant upon the young rookie who is having a phenomenal season. Want to take a moment to talk about Elijah Mitchell here and just call out the new record that he now holds. Mitchell now has 878 rushing yards. He passes Vic Washington's rookie record for the franchise that was 811 in 1971. 1971, that thing was standing.
50 years.
50 years that record has stood the test of time, and now it is toppled. A few more stats that go into it. Below that, you had Ken Willard, ran for 778 and 65. Roger Craig, I didn't really witness this, but I watched Roger Craig, had 725 rushing yards in his rookie season in 1983. But none of those players set those records in as few games as Elijah Mitchell did. Washington, who had the record for 50 years, played 14 games as a rookie, as did Willard. Craig played all 16. Elijah Mitchell set the record in only 10 games so far. He gets his 11th, hopefully, against LA. So in 10 games, the dude set the rookie rushing record for the 49ers. Pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, and it's funny. My brother and me were watching the game because his Dolphins got eliminated, so he was bummed.
Yes.
And he was telling me like the things that Dolphins need next year. He's like, yeah, I told him, I was like, dude, you need a quarterback. I said, I hate to say, but two is not it. He's like, we need a quarterback. We need an offensive line. And we need a running back too. And I'm like, he's like, you guys, I was telling him about like how the misses where we have these like early draft misses. And then in the later rounds, we find all these gems. And he's like, man, Mitchell's ridiculous. And I was like, Jared, he's a 6th-round pick, dude. He's like, you guys need to stop running him into the ground. You keep him healthy. Cause he's like, he's just impressed that a 6th-round running back might be one of the best running backs in the NFL. And he's only played 10 games this year. And the kid is amazing. And I felt like yesterday he was playing a little slow. I don't know if you got that feel too.
Yeah, initially it seemed like he was kicking off some rust initially.
Yeah, he wasn't hitting holes the way that he usually did. And then all of a sudden it's like he got popped a couple times and got some shots on his body, and it like woke him up, and then he became the old Elijah Mitchell. I call him the old Elijah Mitchell, and he's only been on the team for one season. But man, what a find. For all the times we want to get rid of John Lynch and Peters and all those guys, and then you see a pick like this, and it's like, well, maybe we'll hold off on that a little bit, because it's like, what that's all your scouts right there. That's all scouting, and you got to give props also to our running back coach. Please, I know you know his name, the old man. He's been in the league a long time. Somebody in the chat help me out here. The Niners running back coach.
Ooh, we're talking about Bobby Turner. We're talking about the man, the myth, the legend, Bobby Turner, who has been with the Shanahans since Mike Shanahan's era with Denver back in the 90s. He's 72 years old, I believe, and still kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was watching Elijah run out of the game yesterday, and he went right to Bobby. He stood right next to Bobby. It's the Niners, say a lot of things about, maybe sometimes Kyle uses his best friends, like Grant Cohn says, to be his assistants.
Sure.
And then there's guys like Bobby Turner who are the best in the business. It doesn't matter who the Niners have at running back for the most part. They have a pretty successful run game regardless. But Elijah Mitchell is talented. I don't want it to be, it's just Kyle Shanahan and Bobby Turner, and it's not. I mean, the kid can play.
He's got mad talent for sure.
I mean, think this scheme and his talent are the perfect mix. They just look like they're meant to be. He has the ability to kind of, bop in the hole and then make his cut. You know what I mean? He dances a little bit, But a lot of time he always falls forward too. That's what my brother was
Yes.
saying. He goes, I noticed that about him. He's always falling forward. You never see him get stood up, rarely. And so I mean, like that's one of the biggest takes from this year's draft is the Niners, a 6th round running back, their final pick of this past draft. And he's one of their best players on their team. Look how different they are when he plays. They're a completely different team.
It's wild and different when they run the ball successfully. I mean,
Yes.
I pull stats from Jordan Elliott all the time. Shout out to @SplashCousin. But the 49ers improved to 21-1 since 2019 when they run the ball 30 plus times. So when they get rolling like that, they are basically unstoppable. And Elijah Mitchell has been the engine that's made that go this season so far. I mean, he, again, has only played in 10 career games. Also, the 10th running back drafted in that draft, right? Keep that in perspective. He was the 6th rounder. 10 seems to be this guy's lucky number. 10 games to set the rookie rushing record for the 49ers. 10 is where he was drafted in terms of running backs. He's rushed for at least 100 yards in 5 of those 10 games. And that makes him one of 4 running backs since 1990 to rush for at least 100 yards 5 times in their first 10 games played. Just one of 4. I mean, he's doing special things here. And it is fair to say, well, how often do you get a stud rookie running back drafted onto a team that runs and blocks for the run so successfully? And it is a marriage made in heaven, but that's just it. That the San Francisco 49ers seem to continually hit on these late round guys and continue to set them up for success with a system that is so well geared for just hit that hole and go. I mean, so clear that once he got rolling, he was hitting those holes like lightning, greased lightning. I agree with Sean 951 here. Remember, Mitchell had a knee sprain coming out of that Seattle game back in early December. So he is going to go a bit slower in the first few carries. Once he mentally passed them, then he opened up. Yeah, once he got past the mental hurdle, I think that's what Aaron is referring to, that it was visible, the change in him. And you know, the stats ended up being what they did that propelled the 49ers. 21 carries for 119 yards. I mean, the guy is just having himself a year.
And I hate to look forward to next year, but if the Niners, Mostert takes a team-friendly deal because of all his injury issues, and you bring him back, and you have him, and you have Wilson, and you have Trey Sermon, who I think people are sleeping on. I think next year he's gonna surprise a lot of people. And you got JaMychal Hasty. Niners are in pretty good shape in the running back room going forward. You can't say that about a lot of teams.
No.
But my brother, he's a Dolphins fan. He's like, we have nothing in the run. I mean, their offensive line is bad. I've watched a lot of their games. They're horrible. But they have no run game. Nothing. They have no push, no run game. And it's important that people realize that the 49ers are a run-first team. This is a run-first team. And I'm old school. I'm new school in some ways, even though I'm old school. I like the teams that throw the ball around a lot. However, the Niners' recipe for success in this current regime, when they were good in 2019 and, most of this year, is when they run the ball effectively and then they do play action off of it. Jimmy's a really good play action quarterback.
Yes.
I think Trey's not bad at play action either. So, you run the ball and you wear down the defense, and you're going to get some good looks. And it's just a matter of the quarterback hitting those looks when he gets the one-on-ones and the chances to make them. So, I've been very negative, like I said, but I'm really optimistic in a lot of ways going forward with this team, I must say.
Yeah, there's reason for optimism. And before we transition to the other side of the ball, I love stats, random stats. Red Eye brought one in that I like. NFL rookie running back record still standing from 1983. Eric Dickerson, 1,808 yards. I mean, that is something to be celebrated. I don't think
anybody's ever going to break that, to be honest.
That is a hell of a rookie year for the young gentleman.
He was so good.
So good.
He was like really upright when he ran too, and tall.
Yes.
with the goggles and everything.
Right. It's
Yeah.
so much fun to go back and watch highlights. If you never saw Eric Dickerson run in real life, go back and watch the NFL Films tape. It is absolutely worth your time. All right, transitioning to the other side of the ball, just how special has the 49ers pass rush, and more specifically, Arden Key been in this situation? What has impressed you the most about this defensive line, Aaron?
You know, it's the fact that, they're winning, with the way that Bosa gets they played and how the teams chip him or double team him, max protect, whatever you want. And other guys have been stepping up lately, like Armstead, like Arden Key, like Samson Ebukam. I'm trying to think of his name. DJ Jones has been playing really well,
yes, too. DJ Jones. You know I got to show the barbecue sauce when you mention DJ Jones.
The Niners, my brother, again, he was like, man, you guys have a deep defensive line. When the Niners are healthy, and I mean everybody, I mean Bosa, Armstead, DJ, Samson, all these guys, they have a pretty formidable rush. They don't get there every play, but the push is there. I mean, yesterday there was a play where the whole defensive line just completely, it was like they all went backwards, the offensive line, and they all landed on top of the quarterback. And I was just like, wow. So much has been put on Bosa, so much attention that everybody's getting their one-on-ones. It is just a matter of guys are finally starting to, win those one-on-ones. Arden Key was kind of a slow starter this year, and he's really turned it on. I think he has almost 10 sacks, 8 sacks. I don't even know how many sacks he has.
I've got his stats in here. He's got 7 now. 7,
okay.
But they all came in the second half of the season. I mean, it has been a remarkable change for him going into the second half.
Yeah, and Ebukam has been contributing as well. I give a lot of credit to Chris Kasarik, but I also feel like D'Amico Ryans is finally starting to feel his groove.
Yes.
I mean, this is a first-time defensive coordinator. He's had his growing pains this year. You could say what you want about the secondary, but this defense, if they were just a little bit better on the back end, they are pretty damn good defense. And that's kind of my biggest, fear with the 49ers is when teams throw the ball on them.
Yes.
They kind of go into meltdown mode a little bit, but everybody really stepped up yesterday, especially without having Azeez Al-Shaair and Dre Greenlaw. And it was just the Fred Warner show. Defensive line was huge. Arden Key's had a great second half to this season.
Phenomenal.
Niners are definitely going to have some choices to make in the offseason of who they keep, who they extend. Because some people have played themselves into getting paid a little bit. So
yes, they have.
The Niners are going to have some choices to make, and you can't keep everybody. But I mean, I'm more impressed than I thought I would be this year with this group. I was a little bit turned off early on in the year. I thought everybody was underperforming. I thought it was the Nick Bosa nothing else show. But second half, I mean, yesterday's game in the first half, the pass rush was doing nothing.
Yes.
And then I heard the halftime report, and she was talking about how Kyle Shanahan had made a point that the pass rush needs to step up. And literally, as soon as we got into the third corner, it was like somebody lit a fire underneath everybody's ass, and everybody was killing it. So big props to everyone, especially Arden Key, especially DJ Jones. Man, I couldn't be more happy. And Armstead, I'm so hard on the guy because he makes $17 million a year. He played really well yesterday.
He did. And I think it's important to call out his role and the shift to the inside that has produced. And I agree with Joseph Manna here, a sneakerhead of the channel, calling out must re-sign this man right there, DJ Jones. And I got a question of where to buy his barbecue sauce as well. You can get this from Big Dave's Barbecue. Find him on Twitter. They've got a website and everything. I don't get anything paid to me. I just enjoy supporting
I keep
a 49er.
Forgetting about that. I'm like, I got to get some DJ Jones barbecue sauce. Hopefully he stays.
I am telling you, it is worth getting. So I'm actually most impressed by the improvement against the run while not dropping off in pass rush.
Yes.
We've seemed to have overcome the biggest hole in the wide 9 defense by sheer luck in where players have ended up having to play the majority of their snaps. I mean, with Javon Kinlaw going down, you now have the pairing of Armstead and DJ Jones on that starting four, and that is ferocious against the run. I go back to the 3rd and 1 on the second series by Houston. The D-line absolutely blew that play up with multiple players getting into the backfield, snuffing out the run to the right side there, just contributing to that early game malaise for the Houston Texans. Again, going back to something I pulled from Jordan Elliott, one of my favorite stats guys at Splash Cousin, on run defense in their first 8 games, the 49ers defense allowed 7 teams to rush for 100 plus. So over the first half of the season, we were a sieve, right? We were leaking. Over the last 8 games, only 1 team has eclipsed 100 yards on the ground. And that was, wait for it, Seattle in week 13, 146 yards, but 73 of that 146 came on a fake punt. So really have not allowed a 100-yard rusher, save for that frickin' punt return that cost us that game since the first half of the season. The 49ers against Texans running back Rex Burkhead, just 47 yards on 16 carries, 2.9 yards per carry. That was a week after Burkhead went off for almost 150 on 22 carries, a 6.7 yard per carry average versus the Chargers, who, yes, are an atrocious run defense. And then you mentioned it, Samson Ebukam. The resurgence of him in the pass rush has really come on. And I do think you have to recognize that he had a positional change in going from the Rams to the 49ers, that he now is, putting his hand in the dirt, which wasn't the case for him in the Rams defense. And it's a different set of circumstances that he's found himself in. But he's got 19 pressures and 4.5 sacks over his last 4 games. So he's had a sack in each one of those 4 games. He is contributing at this level. You have to look at Chris Kocurek and the amazing job that he does coaching up these people. Let's look back. Kerry Hyder, 2020 for the Niners, 55 pressures, 9 sacks. He leaves the tutelage of Chris Kocurek. This year, 22 pressures, 1 sack. Arden Key, 2020 for the Raiders, 25 pressures, 0 sacks. 2021, 32 pressures, 7 sacks. Almost all of that coming in the second half of the season. I mean, really pretty dominant play from players that otherwise weren't contributing with other squads.
Yeah, and I was really tough on Chris Kocurek early in the year with the running game or with the run defense. Again, I'm going to bring up my brother. He was a Dolphins defense, or I don't know if he's a defensive line coach. And I was telling my brother, it's like, I hate this freaking wide 9, man, because it only works against the pass. And if you don't get there in the run game, you're pretty much running past people, because really the number one priority in the wide 9 is rush the passer and stop the running back on the way there. That's what they always say. And they weren't doing that early in the season. They were getting blown up inside. And like you said, the combination of Eric Armstead and DJ Jones has been transformative to this defense. I don't miss Javon Kinlaw, to be honest with you. To be perfectly honest with you.
Sure.
Do you really miss him? I mean,
I look forward to getting him back, but the players who have stepped in while he's gone have been phenomenal. And I think that they're the priority for making sure that we get him back. Arden Key and DJ Jones.
I just seen Luke Luna in the chat say, I am tough on everyone. I'm going to interview my nephew one of these days as a Niners fan. I'm on channel. And you're going to be like, wow, it's in the blood. Because he's just like me. He's not impressed. He's tough to please. He's super critical. But it's just...
That's a good balance to me,
like
though,
winners.
Right?
We want like a Singletary said. I want winners.
I want winners.
Me and you both grew up during the era of the 49ers dominance and dynasty.
Yes.
So fans who never experienced that, and I'm not saying that about Luke because Luke's about my age, fans who didn't experience that era don't have the expectation or mental. It was different. The Niners were in the NFC Championship game like every year.
Yeah.
Or in the playoffs.
We got spoiled.
We got totally spoiled. And all of a sudden, we've had a 20-year run where we had like 4 or 5 winning seasons in like a 20-year span. And fans are just kind of happy to have a decent season. Dude, like my expectations are huge. And like, especially when you're talented, like a team like the Browns, who everybody every year picks as their sleeper or their dark horse or whatever you call it. And every year they disappoint. Like I'm a highly critical person, but yeah, I was tough on the Chris Kasarik early in the year. He's earned my respect.
Oh,
D'Amico Ryans, he's earned my respect. I was tough on the old defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh, when he was here. I was tough on him too, because I was just like, I want instant gratification, but I realize that things take time sometimes. So
right, right.
mazel
Well,
tov to all those guys.
Sean 951 is in complete alignment here. Can we get some love for the defense? Ranked number 4 overall in the NFL. Truly the reason we're on the brink of the playoffs. 3 duds, but number 4 with our defensive backs and rotating linebackers. Pretty impressive. Yeah, I mean, you wonder what this defense could have been had Jason Verrett stayed healthy throughout. If you had one legitimate shutdown corner playing on this defense, we would have potentially been talking about 2019 levels. I mean, that's the type of difference having one very solid cornerback would have provided. And maybe had they had that, potentially they go to Ambry Thomas a little sooner, right? They may not even bring in Josh Norman off the street if that were the case. I mean, then it's the butterfly effect. A lot of different things change there. But I agree with Sean here that you have to recognize the defense in what they have contributed this season in keeping the 49ers involved in the playoff race. Definitely falls on the defense picking up the slack when the offense was struggling.
Definitely. Somebody in the chat asked me to be tough on Jed York. Oh, if I would have made a YouTube channel back in 2017 and 2015 and 2016, that's all I would have talked about.
It would have been ugly.
Yeah, I would have been all about how I hate Jed York and he needs to be fired. But I mean, Jed has kind of empowered these guys and kind of stayed in the background, where he belongs.
He has. You got to give him credit for
in the
that.
background unless somebody needs to be fired or something happens where someone has to go. Like the John, what's his name from the Raiders, John Gruden situation or another situation where, the coach, the owner has to come out and say, listen, we have to move on. But this is the John and Kyle show. And this is on them. So, until Jed needs a reason to kind of say anything, I think he's doing a good job for the first time in his career. So,
yeah, I would have to agree. I think that you've got to give him credit for staying in the background for the most part. Leo coming in here at Rob and Aaron. A question for us on the run first team point. How does Trey improve our overall run game? Is it just that deep ball threat keeping the D from stacking the line? That certainly is a component of it, right? Defenses know what they're getting when Jimmy Garoppolo is on the field. They know that if they muddle the middle of the field, they're going to have the best chance of forcing a turnover and be able to play close to the line of scrimmage and therefore stop the run. You can have 8 men in the box because you're not going to play 2 high safeties. So you're bringing one of those safeties down towards the line of scrimmage, allowing them to play more of that Cam Chancellor enforcer role, hitting at the line of scrimmage. If you're taking those deep shots, teams are forced into those 2 high safety looks. You're taking the 8th man out of the box. But I think on top of that, you're stressing them with true 11-on-11 football where the quarterback can be the ball carrier and can be a legitimate threat, right? With Jimmy, sure. Can he scramble? Yes. Is he slightly more mobile than I think people give him credit for? Yes. Does he utilize that? No. For the most part, he does not. With Trey, it's a legitimate threat, and defenses are kept honest by that threat.
You're right. It's 11-on-11 football. Everybody has to be accounted for. The threat of the run with Trey it keeps defenses honest. I mean, look how much struggles we've had against teams that have mobile quarterbacks over the past, however many years that Kyle and John have been here. Russell Wilson, and my brain is not working today at all. Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray. I mean, they carved us up in the past. So I'm totally for the other. My God, Trey brings a different component to this
a
offense,
new element,
and you just have to respect it. Is he a running quarterback? No, he's a mobile quarterback, but I don't think he's necessarily like a Colin Kaepernick type who can, go 0 to 60 really fast. he to me, just his legs and ability to keep plays alive and having the defense have to respect the fact that he's scrambling kind of opens up stuff behind him, because they got to make a choice one way or the other. Where are we going to go? Are we going to go after the quarterback, or are we going to stay back and play coverage? So just that threat alone makes the Niners that much harder to defend. And then you couple in the run game, you couple in Kittle, Debo, and the Niners become very formidable and hard to stop. So
very hard to stop, very hard to defend. We got a couple more super chats before we get to our next topic. District 13. There's been a little kerfluffle in the chat between a friendly Seahawks fan who seems to be reasonably politely suggesting that the Seahawks are a quality organization and defending his team, which he has the right, he or she has the right to do. But shots fired by District 13. Shout out to the Seahawks highlight. Enjoy fishing, as they are most definitely out of the playoffs. Random McMahon in the chat saying what's up. You know Random McMahon. He will be back on Between Two Beards on Wednesday. You know we will have that episode kicking this week. HR coming in, criticizing Jed. It is our birthright, and Jed is meddling with it. Clearly just some Jed frustration that I think is pretty common amongst 49er faithful, that we're not overly thrilled with our owner, and very few organizations have an owner that you would be proud of, so it's not all that off. George Yu, speaking of defense, Jimmy Ward has COVID. Yes, we have brought that in earlier in the show. Unfortunately, that is going to be the case for him. It doesn't mean he's out, though. Remember, the NFL changed COVID protocols. He still can get activated with a negative test. The critical component here will be that he doesn't develop symptoms. If he gets symptoms, then I think he's probably out, because I think that extends the window for negative tests. But if he has no symptoms and can produce a negative test, then he is cool, because all you need is 5 days from that positive test. So I think what you'll have is the NFL testing on Monday to allow for that 5 days to happen so that players can get back on the field. And we just got to hope that's the case for the 49ers. All right, let's look at one of the members of the secondary and talk about Ambry Thomas and his elevated improvement from week to week. For me, that's just it when we're talking about Ambry Thomas, Aaron. It is improvement from week to week. Started out, he was just keeping up with the receivers, right? Just body to body. But I thought, hey, that's step one for a cornerback to be able to make plays. Next, he was attempting to make the play on the ball, but it was getting ripped from his hands. Then there were a few successful pass breakups. And I was talking to Croc on my program over the weekend. He talked about just needing Ambry to develop that mindset of when the ball is in the air, it's his. He owns it, and he just needs to go snatch it. That's the next step. And I thought we saw that on Sunday. He finished Sunday 2 stops in the run game, only 1 catch allowed for 0 yards, and he did have 1 pass breakup. To me, with this trajectory of improvement week to week, it's clear when E-Man returns that it should be Emmanuel Mosley on one side and Ambry Thomas on the other.
Couldn't agree more. He's had a steady improvement every single game he's played this year. And then he went up against some pretty damn good competition, the kid. And, you win some, you lose some as a young DB. I think DB is one of the harder positions as a rookie, especially someone who's a third rounder like him to learn. Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, you're going against, it's different from college. The athletes are bigger, stronger, faster. Teams are going to attack you if they see you have a weakness. And for the most part, I think, especially yesterday, I mean, did you hear his name at all other than that almost interception that he probably would have returned for a pick six?
Oh, that should have been a pick six. Oh my goodness.
I was rooting so hard for him. For someone who's hard on a lot of people, I've been kind of indifferent with him because he hadn't played, and he was getting thrown into the mix in the middle of an NFL season where every game matters. And he was pretty much getting locked up on all the best players every single game. So my assessment of him was more or less, let's just see if he improves over the course of the season. And he's done that. I would definitely go with him and Emmanuel Mosley going into next year, possibly moving Diamador Lenore to the slot corner, which is, I think, what the Niners are envisioning him to be anyways. because you can't keep everybody. As much as K1 is a great player, he does have injury issues, so and he'd also be a cheaper option. I think the Niners still go and get some other help to help that corner room. I don't think they're going to stop with that, but yeah.
And you could see Diamador Lenore in this week. K'Wan Williams is one of the 6 49ers that have currently tested positive for COVID as of today. They all have a chance to return. They all are within that 5-day window that now exists within the NFL. All they will need is a negative test, I think, assuming that they have no symptoms. And so you could see Ambry Thomas out wide and Diamador Lenore in the slot against the Rams. And that's
interesting.
Pretty ferocious passing attack there. Just going to bring in a super chat real quick before we close out this topic on Ambry Thomas. Chris Royal, one of the sneakerheads of the channel, is cautioning those talking any trash about the Seahawks in the chat. And I think this is good because you don't want bad karma. You do not want bad karma for the 49ers. So I agree with Chris here. We ain't exactly a lock for the playoffs. Probably should not talk too much crap. Might be eating some crow when it's all said and done. Better not to put any bad karma out there. Chris, I appreciate you tempering expectations for those in the chat getting a little exuberant with themselves in taking this one opportunity. Now, I can't blame them because this is the one opportunity that we've had in a long time to say that the Seahawks had a losing season, right? Seahawks, to their credit, have earned the right to not have a losing season by winning consistently over and over in the Carroll era. So, I can't fault the 49ers fans for wanting to take this time to say something, and better to wait, see how this thing turns out, and not throw any bad karma out there. Wouldn't you say, Aaron?
Yeah, we don't really have a place to be that kind of fan base.
Right.
We haven't had that many winning seasons in 20 years.
No, 4 out of the last 20, right?
So to be cocky and be like, you suck, your team sucks. They've owned us, okay? He's like 16-4 against us, Russell Wilson, since he's become the starter of the Seattle Seahawks. So all of us need to calm down, okay? Let's just worry about the Rams and this COVID thing, and don't worry about Seahawks. They're not in the playoffs. Forget about them. Like, I don't even understand how this is even a conversation right now. Just forget it.
Agreed. Randall Riley agrees that hoping E-Man can play this weekend. We really need him with the wide receiver core that the Rams have. Totally agree. And Luke Luna bringing us back into this topic around Ambry Thomas, correctly pointing out, I think, that some 49ers fans, they're good with Ambry right now, but if it was up to them, Kyle and John would have been fired before the kid even got a chance. Players develop, fans need patience. I think this patience message is one that I put out on Twitter yesterday. You could see fans in the first half just getting impatient, really looking at that performance and getting nervous too quickly. That, you got to let these things unfold. You got to realize that these are rookies getting their initial snaps. And just like Ambry Thomas's improvement, I'm going to call this out on PFF. I know that it's PFF, so take it with a grain of salt if you want to. But his week-to-week improvement from weeks 14, 15, 16, and 17, 38.1 week 14. 38.4, week 15, not good performances. Week 16, 65.9. Week 17, 72.2. One of the better defensive grades out there on the field. And so it is this patience. You do have to let these rookies play. You have to let them get better, and you have to look for that progress. I saw that with Lance from the first half to the second half, from week 5 to week 17, huge improvement. And I am seeing that from Ambry Thomas as well.
Yeah, I was actually talking here and there during the game with Luke Luna, and we were talking about how his way of kind of evaluating Trey Lance is you want to see Trey stuff with his arm. It's great that he can scramble. It's great that he can kind of move around in the pocket. But to try to make that real evaluation of him, you want to see him do things that Jimmy does. As critical as I am of Jimmy, but what Jimmy does on the regular, you want to see that maturation of going through your reads, being patient, going through your progressions, and then but at the same time making the quick throw, and through the course of the game, my patience really never waned, or my faith in him never waned, because I tweeted before the game, regardless of what happens with this kid, I'm still on board with him because There's so many factors. He played at a Division II school. He sat out a year. He's barely played this season. He's been doing scout team rep. Like there's a lot. He had an injured finger. He had an injured knee. Like there's a lot to be. It's not just what you see at face value. There's a lot of factors. Same thing with Ambry Thomas. He sat out a year.
Right.
And now he's in the NFL. He probably doesn't have the NFL body right now. He's probably going to have to get in the weight room in the off season.
Definitely a thin guy.
Maybe he goes and trains with a pro that can give him some pointers, go to like a DB camp or so. I am impatient. We have to give guys a chance to develop, and I have to give guys a chance to develop because I'm very panicky too. But yeah, during yesterday's game, I stayed off Twitter for the most part because people are like panicking, like, oh, we made the wrong choice. We should have drafted. It's like, really? Like, come on, have some faith. And so, yeah.
Have some faith. All right, William Bennett, one of our sneakerheads, saying, I believe for us to win on Sunday against the Rams, we need the defense to get turnovers and pressure on the quarterback. The offense needs to manage the clock. What do you think? William, that takes us into our next topic of the O-line and asking if maybe it isn't the most impressive unit on the team. And I do think that it will require contributions from the O-line for the 49ers to win, regardless of whomever is the quarterback on Sunday, but especially if it is Trey Lance. So again, it's PFF, so take it with a grain of salt if you must. But as I always do, I compare PFF to what the eye test says. What do my own eyes tell me about this? And in my mind, it backs up this assertion. But PFF grades the 49ers O-line as number 1 in run blocking. And this is the surpriser for me, number 6 in pass blocking. That's with Tom frickin' Compton at right tackle. They only allowed 1 sack, 1 QB hit against the Texans. Not a great defense, but a pretty solid defensive line. I mean, that's where we picked up Charles Omenihu, was because they had enough depth to trade him away as an fifth-round pick. I did see Daniel Brunskill get pancaked in that game, which was tough for him, but I think he was put in a bad position. And I feel like that's often the case, that these guys on the right side, Brunskill and Tom Compton, typically it's when they're asked to do something like chip on one player and then take on their primary blocker. It's in those instances where they tend to get bull rushed and pancaked, and neither one of them is really capable of standing up to that. But I'm impressed. Not surprised by the number 1 ranking for the run blocking. Very impressed by the number 6 ranking for the pass blocking.
Yeah, you totally got me on that one. Number 6. And I think Trey, when he continues to play, into the future, that ranking might always be high just because his ability to, escape and elongate plays. But I would assume that's most of that, if not all of it's been with Jimmy at quarterback. And, Jimmy can be a statue back there a lot of times and roots himself in the backfield. So yeah, that's definitely impressive that where they are as far as passing grades, but running game, I'm not surprised at all.
No. It's unbelievable.
Even with McGlinchey, and I am not a McGlinchey fan at all, he's a fantastic run blocker. Like one of the best. It's just, his pass blocking, I don't know if it's just his build or how he's like a long, tall, kind of slender guy.
Yeah, he is definitely tall.
His pass doesn't anchor and I was watching Trent Williams in pass protection yesterday, just completely manhandle people. That's scary, bro. Like my dad had strength like Trent Williams, where like if you got into it with him and he would get a hold of you, it was a wrap. Like you were not
grown
escaping.
Man strength.
Yeah, it was like farm boy strength. It's just, wow,
farm boy strength. That's a
scary.
Good way to put it.
I don't want to get in a fight with that dude. I'm just like, I'll just stand over here.
No.
And I was watching Trent and even Lakin. Lakin has become a really good left guard for this team. So
yes, he has.
Not surprised in the run rankings, but definitely surprised in the pass block rankings. So
yeah,
good for those guys. You could have, if you would have told me this early on in the year, I would have laughed in your face, but I'm definitely, I've seen that it's the steady improvement of the offensive line, but mostly in the run game, but for the pass blocking to have kind of elevated itself too. That's great.
Yes, and you've seen Alex Mack grow into himself within the role. I mean, truly, truly, from start of the year until now, night and day difference there. And Trent Williams, I mean, you just have to acknowledge how special of a season he is having. Definitely the best left tackle in the league this year. Potentially one of the best seasons for anyone in the NFL this year. I mean, just that special of a season, and you don't get the recognition because it's an offensive lineman, because he plays for a West Coast team. I mean, if you were seeing this on the Patriots, for example, it would be plastered all over every news story.
Or the Cowboys, or,
Yeah, right. The Cowboys. Oh, my goodness.
Some other
Would it be
media
all
darling.
over everything?
Right.
And they still bring in the Cowboys left tackle for the conversation, even though it's clear that it's night and day difference between Trent Williams. So, yeah, it is. Just got to recognize how phenomenal of a season. Because it was Trent Williams' cleats were available in that Dig for Gold auction that was going on, the 49ers do, I put in a bid to try and get the cleats for Schuh's channel here. You know I got to have Trent Williams shoes. But the bidding got a little out of hand, and they were from the 2020 season. Had they been 2021 cleats, I would have stayed in the bidding until the end, and I would have overpaid for a pair of Nike cleats.
That's
the
awesome.
2020 Juju, not quite as good. I didn't want to bring that into the man cave.
Speaking of what you got behind you, you got those shoes that I have, the sneakers, the Nike sneakers, the 49er ones.
Yes. Do you have these very same Air Pegasus?
I absolutely do.
They are fantastic.
They're in my base. They're in my basement somewhere. I've worn them a couple times. I've been all decked out, but yeah.
Yes, they are game day attire for me at times. Not always, because, if I'm going somewhere, if it's raining, I'm not wearing the nice Nikes. But I'd like the San Francisco 49ers to come out with some better sneakerhead options, just so that I can make sure that, as a sneakerhead, I am rolling in Niners gear. All right, a couple of super chats before we get to our last topic of optimism for 2022. Luke Luna, suggestion for the offseason, sign Verrett for cheap to play situationally. I mean, if you're signing Verrett, I'm okay with it as long as you have plan A, and Jason Verrett is not part of plan A. If he is a complementary piece, as you're suggesting here, Luke, I am on board with it, because when he's healthy, the guy is a stud. He just struggles to stay healthy, and therefore I think that you can rely on that. But if you're using him to complement two solid cornerbacks, I'm all for it, because that's value. All right, next one, Silverado Kev coming in. We've discussed this. How is anyone was less patient or more anxious with Lance starting slow than Jimmy? Keep that same energy. Stop it. I got 5 on it. Silverado Kev joined me for the pregame on Sunday. Loved the energy. Yes, I have to agree in this sentiment that if you were okay with a slow start previously, then, it's just more of the same. I was not okay with either one, right? I was frustrated when I saw Jimmy start slowly. I was frustrated when I saw Trey start slowly, but I don't blame Jimmy. I don't blame Trey. I blame the offense as a whole. I blame Shanahan's play calling to start games. And so I was patient in knowing that Trey could still deliver, in knowing that Shanahan was feeling out the situation. I remained patient. I didn't get the sense that 49ers Twitter was very patient at all.
I mean, I was listening to the broadcast, and I don't know if it was Adam Archuleta, who was he wasn't the play-by-play guy, but he was the color commentator, I guess.
Right.
And he was saying it's a feeling out process.
Yes.
With Kyle and Trey. It's going to take time. You got to figure out the things that Trey does well, and you got to incorporate those things in your game plan.
So true.
If Trey, I tweeted, I said, get Trey out in the bootlegs and the waggles. Like, get him out of the pocket. He looks comfortable when he's on the move, and design plays to get guys moving with him. Remember the game against the Rams, and we were getting scorched by Jared Goff. He kept rolling out, and we just had no answer for him. It was during the 2019 season. And I'm just like, and he's not anywhere near as mobile as Trey Lance. So there's definitely going to be a feeling out process. You could tell Kyle was kind of getting tight in the rear end a little bit. I was nervous. Kyle looked nervous. Like, man, we got this game riding on this kid, and he's a little shaky to start. But you got to figure out ways to get this kid in positions where his talents can be used. And It takes time.
It takes time, but what you gain in previous games can carry forward, right? So the comfort that Kyle developed in that game against the Houston Texans, he can carry forward against the Los Angeles Rams if he needs to go with Trey again. That he will now have a better understanding of what that rhythm is or what those strengths for Trey may be. And so I do think that the more time they get together, the more comfort Kyle's going to have in calling plays for Trey and bringing him in situationally, but also entire game plans for him. You could see this opening up if the Niners make it into the playoffs and Kyle gets comfortable with play calling for both quarterbacks. Maybe he does go back to that 2-quarterback system if he feels that he can flex back and forth and continue to call good plays for both. I'm okay with whatever he's most comfortable with because I'm guessing that's where he's going to be most in his bag as a play caller. And that's when we see the best version of the 49ers. Chris Royal coming in, acknowledging the 49ers offensive line, saying Compton has played much better the last few weeks. Initially, it really was just him standing out as a run blocker. You would see him downfield on some of those long runs for Deebo Samuel. Now you are seeing it more consistently. You're seeing him stand up in pass protection. I would have to say that I have seen some pancake blocks, unfortunately, where he has gotten laid on his backside when getting bull rushed. But that does happen in the NFL if you're not a very big offensive lineman and you take what you can get. You're either better in the run game or better in the pass protection game. And right now, the 49ers are just riding that successful run blocking.
Definitely. Their run blocking is what they do best. I just think these guys prefer run blocking over pass blocking.
Yes, they seem to love it.
Because when you're a run blocker, you really get to road grade people. And even as a smaller guy, if you get on the move, you get some momentum, you can drop somebody on their backside. I know Trent Williams for sure loves run blocking.
Yes.
I saw a highlight from early in the year. I don't know if it was a DB that he hit or a linebacker. The dude literally got rolled out of the screen. You see him get hit and then just kind of roll out. I was like, wow, man, I would have took off my gear and been like, peace, I'm out. My career's over. I just got owned. That was bad.
Yes. And you're going to be on SportsCenter for sure.
Yep.
Frank Hanna coming in. Was the Texans defense very well positioned to defend what the 49ers like to do? See Titans game as well. Is the book out on the 49ers offense a bit? Frank, I think that this is a fair ask when you do have Jimmy Garoppolo in there. I do think that teams are keying in on muddling the middle of the field. So I do think that there is some figuring out of what the 49ers like to do when Jimmy Garoppolo is in there. I think that changes when Trey Lance comes in. And this offense looked different. It looked harder to defend. It looked like one that you can take considerable deep shots and force them to play a little less 8 men in the box, fewer times with 8 men in the box. And that certainly opens things up for the 49ers rushing game. I do think it's fair to say with Jimmy in there that, yes, teams have started to stack the box and force Jimmy to beat them not over the middle of the field.
I think teams have had a feel for the Niners for a while, not just this year, but previous seasons, the Super Bowl as well. And I think one of the reasons they drafted Trey is because Trey brings other elements that you can't sit on,
Right.
Like you said, teams have to play 11 on 11, where when you have Jimmy, it's like, okay, he's no threat to run. He's only going to throw to the middle of the field. So as long as we clog up his passing lanes, he's not going to be effective. And, the Niners become one dimensional. With Trey, it's a totally different beast because not only can he get on, he can get you with his legs, but he can get himself on the move to elongate plays to get guys open. So, I think the Niners people have kind of had a lock on them for a while of what they like to do. It's just not all teams are able to successfully, capitalize on it.
Right.
And then there's teams like the Titans that Jimmy had no answer for, and part of it was his hand, but Jimmy's had some stinkers in the past where people have just muddled up the middle of the field and he isn't able to really challenge you outside the numbers and they beat the 49ers. Then the run game becomes the only thing you got to worry about. But with Trey, the whole field's open. as far as the pass game goes, and his mobility and his ability to extend plays is there too. So the Niners have been kind of figured out for a while, and I think that's why, among other reasons, is why the 49ers decided to draft a guy like Trey Lance. It changes the offense and makes it less predictable.
It does. It gives you something, an ace up your sleeve that you can go to when teams are able to take that away. Because the 49ers still want to run the ball first and foremost. Doesn't matter who's back there at quarterback. They would rather run the ball down your throat if they can. If they can't, if you're able to successfully stop the run, Trey makes it more difficult to stop the remainder of the offense. Preston Reynolds coming in. Don't think it is probable, but highly feasible that we re-sign Mostert as a home run hitter this offseason to complement Mitchell. Again, I think that would be a fantastic idea as long as you have the rest of the running back room filled out with quality, healthy starters. I see this very similarly to the Jason Verrett scenario where you have Elijah Mitchell, you have Trey Sermon. I believe that we have Jeff Wilson Jr. under contract for one more year. Maybe not. Maybe he's a free agent. But as long as you fill out another slot with a healthy-bodied back, adding Mostert to that equation, yes, please. Adding Mostert with the intention of only rushing him, up to 10 times a game just as that home run hitter, absolutely. I do wonder if he feels he's a starting caliber back and if he would take some slight at accepting a role like that. He did seem to want to hold out for a better contract just a couple of years ago where the 49ers had to revamp that contract. But now he's coming off of injury, so he may not have the leverage required to get that multi-year deal. If he comes back on a single-year contract and the 49ers have the rest of the room filled out, I'm 100% on board with this.
Yep. If the Niners solidify their roster with healthy, available players, and then you take a shot on a Verrett or on a Mostert, but if they don't want to come and they think that they can go get more money somewhere else, you say, thanks for what you've done for the team, but it's time to go, because you can no longer depend and have vital positions filled out by guys that miss, the majority of the season every season.
Yeah.
It's just, you cannot build an extended winner that way by always depending on guys to go against something that's been happening to them their whole career, which is they're always hurt. So insulate yourself with good players, healthy players, and then, add sprinkles of different players to different parts of your roster as, an extra piece or a depth piece. Don't make it as, we have to sign this guy because he's our number one starter. Because that's just, the Niners have been doing that for the whole regime of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, and it's bitten them in the rear end every single time. So as long as they do that, and then that's how they go about it. And if guys are willing to accept a pay cut and understand that it's, it's a business and they have been injured, then yeah, I would say bring him back. But if he's wanting to be paid like a starting caliber running back, I say see you later.
I think that's just it, right? You cannot afford to take these players back that are not going to play the starting role because of the 49ers cap situation. They only have 31 players under contract. They don't have a ton of money left to sign players at this point. So again, it becomes, can you get them back at a discount? To me, I would absolutely take them back. That would definitely be something I would do, but only, to your point, if you get them on a reasonable deal. All right, we're getting into our last topic here. I finally did have to put the Seahawks fan on a timeout just because it was the same copy and paste. If you spam my chat, I go timeout first. If you want to come back with it again, that's probably a block. I love opposing fans being here. That's all great. I just prefer not to have the same message over and over and over again. All right, getting into closing out in optimism for 2022. Again, if you had told me that I was going to be optimistic for 2022 when we were sitting at 3-5, I might have thought that you were crazy at the time. It felt pretty bleak, even for me, even for a guy who is all about the positivity, trying to drag other Niner faithful with him to a positive place where we are rooting for success. But here we are. We are in what effectively is a play-in game. The 49ers have already started their playoff race. They are playing the division rival Los Angeles Rams at SoFi Stadium for the frickin' playoffs. I mean, that is absolutely what I wanted to have happen this year. I'm pretty ecstatic about it. Now that we're here, now that we are on the cusp, what of this process has left you with the most optimism for 2022?
It's all over the place. It's so many different positions, quarterback, running back, our core players as far as Debo, Ayuk, and George Kittle. That's optimism for me. Linebacker, if guys can come back healthy and strong next year, I think that's a position of strength. My worries, but they're not like huge worries, is, defensive, corner position and, offensive line. I feel like the Niners can somehow solidify those two positions. They put themselves in a really good chance to have a really good season next year. Because I feel like those are their two biggest weaknesses. I feel like Trey's only going to get better with another off season. And now that he becomes the starter, he's going to get all the reps in camps. This is going to be his team. He's not fighting with Jimmy to get the starting job. It's effectively his. And I just think this team right now, we're in a little bit of a window with Trey. We have a lot of talent on this team. This team is a talented team. You got Nick Bosa, of course. And then you have the linebackers, you have the safeties that are pretty good. I don't know what's going to go on with Tart after the year. I hope there's a way they can keep him. But there's optimism for me all over. And you're right. When the Niners were 3-5, I was like super Mr. Negative, like blow this whole thing up, get rid of everybody. But, I let myself kind of relax and observe and look at things with a clear head and realize that the Niners are pretty good at a lot of positions. They just got to, they got to fortify some areas of weakness, maybe fortify some areas of strength as well. I would definitely try to get another pass rusher in the draft, even if it's a mid-rounder.
Yes.
A guy who's just a strictly speed rusher, a one-dimensional type player like a D Ford. Try to keep as much depth on the defensive line as you can in free agency. The Niners have a lot of areas of strength. I'm really, really high on Trey Lance, even though it's one start. I have this feeling. I hate it. I hate to say that because I had the feeling with Jimmy, but Trey is just a different entity. He's just a different type of quarterback. So my optimism for next year is pretty high.
Mine too, and I don't think it's misplaced to do so. I'm going to get into a few of the feelings from the comments as we go. You know me, I got to bring in any compliments that come in. Worst YouTuber ever says this, and it's coming from the worst YouTube ever. So, I mean, that's a voice of reason. My new favorite go-to for Niner Talk. Thanks, Rob. Well, thank you. And as I always ask, if you do enjoy the content, please do like the video. It helps Aaron and I amplify this message, get it out to more Niner faithful. If you're here and you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe. Aaron's links are down below in the description. You can follow him on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at The Left Schuh. You can find his YouTube page for 49ers First Takes. It is down there in the description, and go subscribe to that channel as well. We greatly appreciate it. But here's the optimism. Jay Stamps says Ambry Thomas will be a Pro Bowler in 2022. Book it. I love the optimism. Mr. Cartier 7, our future is so bright. I mean, there are other sides of it as well. Sean 9519ers not having it, but because of the idea that we have so many vacancies to fill. But let me tell you why I am optimistic. I am optimistic because of what you mentioned. Some young players that are studs at the position. Elijah Mitchell, room for optimism in my book. Ambry Thomas, I am optimistic about that one as well. The improvement I've seen from Samson Ebukam, from Arden Key, if we're able to re-sign him. DJ Jones, a key player to re-sign as well. When I look at the core of the roster, Fred Warner, locked down. Nick Bosa, pretty sure we're going to lock him down, but certainly locked down for 2022. Debo Samuel, here for 2022. Again, probably going to get him long-term. Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, Trey Lance. You've got, I mean, just a number of positions where you've got top in the league. Kyle Juszczyk, right? Best fullback in the league. He's locked down as well. When you've got best fullback, best left tackle, best tight end in George Kittle, best middle linebacker in Fred Warner, best defensive edge in Nick Bosa. If you can say those are the best or close to the best in the league at their position, that's a core of a team that you can build around. And then Trey Lance, the optimism that I have for that young gentleman is what puts it over the top for me. That is where I get my excitement because I see the improvement from week 5 up until his start against the Texans. And I see his improvement from the first half against the Texans to the second half of the Texans. And again, I just see something that I can wrap my heart around and get excited for next year when he is the full-time starter and he can absolutely continue to grow week in and week out.
I heard a comment on another YouTube channel. It could have been Locked On 49ers. I don't know who I was listening to, but they were saying like Trey Lance's floor, his worst is so much higher than some of the worst that we've seen from the other drafted quarterbacks. Like,
oh yeah,
Zach Wilson's played some pretty bad ball. Trevor Lawrence, number 1 pick. I know it's the Jaguars, but he's played some rough ball. You know, Mac Jones has been the most solid of the picks, mainly because of where he is and who's surrounding him. He's got a great offensive coordinator in McDaniel, great head coach. They have a pretty talented offense. And I just think like he's in the best position, and he was the most pro ready anyway. That was the report on him coming out of the draft is he's going to be the one that could start right away. But the Niners are kind of looking big picture of like, where could Trey Lance start and how far he could go and how much more he could develop. And I just think Trey's, even at his worst, still looks formidable. And it gives me optimism that the more he plays, the more reps he gets, he's just going to get that much better. And the fact that he's a film junkie, like Larry Krueger always says, he loves watching film. He loves working on his craft. He's on his iPad all the time. That to me is one thing we never got with Kaepernick. He wasn't that kind of guy. Kaepernick was just all athleticism and pretty much that was it. You never see him as there was reports he wasn't a classroom guy or a first to arrive, last to leave kind of person. And you get that with Trey Lance. Even with Jimmy's, I heard he's good with the classroom stuff as well. So there's just so much optimism with Trey. I'm so hard to please as a fan. I'm very, very negative. And I don't think I've been this optimistic about the 49ers at the end of a season than I've ever been. And usually I'm optimistic because we're going to draft a high pick or we're going to be strong in free agency. No, I'm happy with this core now before we even add anything to it. So to me, I want us to do well and end this year well. I hope we can win on Sunday and get into the playoffs and maybe make a little noise. But if we don't, I'm still really optimistic for 2022.
As am I. Very optimistic for 2022, regardless of how this thing comes out. I'm taking some of that optimism from what Joseph Manna is pointing out here. Trey Lance currently has the highest QB rating of all the rookie quarterbacks. And I know I saw earlier in the chat people talking about, well, it's against the trash Texans. That word trash gets overused so much. I had to fight with someone in the comments. I don't fight with people in the comments, but I had a discussion with someone in the comments of one of the videos about it being a college level team. That is so far from the truth. Every team within the NFL is a high caliber of competition. These are NFL caliber teams. The Texans struggled mightily early in the season. Over the last 6 games, we're 3-3. Their run defense is atrocious. Their pass defense, not so much. So that was the angle that Trey was facing. And I do give him credit for progressing from first half to second half. I do give him credit for getting comfortable. And it is that comfort that gives me solace for who is going to take us into the future. The future looks bright with Trey in my book. All right, before we hit that last super chat that I just saw coming in, Ellis10 asks, who's starting at quarterback this week for the 49ers. I figured I would just give him my prediction. I don't think Jimmy gets healthy, and I think it's Trey Lance again. I think Trey Lance goes against the Rams, and I think it's dictated by Jimmy being unable to throw this week.
Agreed.
You agree with that, Aaron?
Absolutely.
All right, Sean951 takes us out of here with his topic. We are going to go with this for the close. For the record, I am always optimistic of my Niners, but I want to see what we do to re-sign and fill in voids. And ultimately, it all boils down to Trey. You can't fault Sean for that logic. I mean, you have 31 players under contract, so who they fill out the roster with is going to be critical. Who they draft is going to be critical. I think you and I are in alignment in previous conversations. I know this to be true, that we both believe that you have to prioritize cornerback and edge rusher as those two very key positions that you need to fill. You need someone who can start opposite of Emmanuel Mosley, and maybe you found that in Ambry Thomas, but I don't know that you can count on him taking the next step next year. I would rather he were the third option and develop into a Pro Bowler than relying on that. But if you fill those couple of voids and you re-sign a couple of key players, I'm looking at you, DJ Jones, not going to cover up his head, then I feel very confident about it. I don't need many key signings before I feel confident about 2022. And the reason for me is because I am confident in Trey. That's my take on it.
And I think you say what you want about winning Super Bowls with a good defense and running game, but at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, if you don't have an elite or at least high level starter in the NFL, it's difficult to win a Super Bowl.
Amen.
The best teams have the best quarterbacks, or the best teams that win have the best quarterback. Brady, Mahomes, Peyton, Breeze, Montana, Young. You can go on with all the great players. And you have to have that. Yeah, there's the Brad Johnsons of the world. There's the Kerry Collins that get into the Super Bowl.
Right, the one-offs.
The one-off players. But majority of the time, if you don't have a high level or elite level quarterback, you're not going to sniff the Super Bowl, because sometimes all the other areas on your team fail, and you need that quarterback like a Mahomes who takes it on his shoulders and
lifts
just elevates
the team up.
Everybody. The defense may have an off day and just suck, but your quarterback comes out like Brady and throws 5 freaking touchdowns, and it's just like, you're as a team who's playing them, you're almost beaten before you start, because it's like, we could play our best game. They could have one of their worst days on defense and we still lose because their quarterback's that much better. So my whole thing with Trey is just get all of the experience you can, man. Stay vigilant in your preparation and your book smart, being a guy who likes to study. And I think the sky's the limit. When I watched him yesterday, I was just like, man, the Niners have finally decided to join the rest of the world in the rest of the league, and in the 21st century of how you build a team with a quarterback. And like, it was just like, this is our dude. Like, I'm happy. So
this is our dude, our dual threat quarterback. Finally, right. Kyle Shanahan gets to play around with a shiny new toy like this. And I got to bring in Leo's response here, which I love. And this is from Sneakerhead to Sneakerhead here. Leo saying, Sean, I hella appreciate your realistic, sobering inputs. And I just wanted to put that up because I appreciate all of the members of this channel, all the sneakerheads that are constantly contributing fantastic points to it. Sean951, certainly one of those. If you have seen the Sneakerhead call-in show, you know that Sean can deliver it live and in person as well. But that just goes from me to all of the sneakerheads, to anyone who watches the channel and comments in the chat. Anyone who puts thought into those responses, I cannot appreciate more, like this dialogue that we get going here. And I love the participation that occurs from people who are in it real time. Just wanted to take that moment to say thank you for that. And that's hits the end of the show. Aaron, thank you so much for being on today. I will be back tomorrow for a 49ers mailbag on my channel. But you and I, we're constantly trying to make this thing happen, getting you back here on the channel for your insights. I thought today was a fantastic show, Aaron.
I had a lot of fun. I'm definitely more
Yes.
comfortable than I was the last show because I hadn't been on in a while. I was sweating my butt off the last time. Oh, he needs to end this thing. But today I was very comfortable. So.
Well, I'm glad that you were. You should always be comfortable on this show. Again,
Absolutely.
On your way out, if you want to, hit the like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and do the same for 49ers First Takes. The links are down below in the description of the video. Subscribe to both. Get all your 49er content taken care of. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. It was longer than expected, but we just had a good dialogue going on, so we had to keep rolling. Let's go watch some Monday Night Football. I will be back on tomorrow. Until then, cheers, 49er faithful.